Welcome to this both interview and also like a podcast episode. This is the first one. We're in beautiful Berlin with beautiful weather. We just finished our workshop.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first, it's an honor. Thank you for having me as your very first guest. I really appreciate getting the opportunity to chat with you. Yes, Berlin is absolutely beautiful here mid-April, and just enjoying the first conference and generally Berlin.
Yeah. This is my fourth time being here at this conference. So it's we call this a tradition in Norway after 2 or 3 times. My fourth time, so it has to be a tradition, right? So yeah. We're going to do just the basics about you. Could you sort of tell us a little bit about yourself? So your name, your occupation, what you do, your background, where you came from?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Garrett Carstens. I've been at Intel 471. I currently work at Intel 471. I've been here for, coming up almost on 7 years at this point. I started out as a collection manager. So ultimately, it's a position within the company that we engage with our clients and try to understand what are their intelligence requirements. Are we addressing those intelligence requirements? But I've moved on over to the VP of Intel Operations, which kind of looks at the overall series of processes we have within the Intel department. Are we optimizing our processes? Are we looking for new ways to implement new tooling? Historically, before Intel 471, I spent a little time at the U.S. Department of Defense, so looking at cyber adversaries, both nation state as well as cyber criminal, and maybe some nexus between those entities. I spent some time at General Electric, specifically GE Capital, on the hunt team, as well as the applied Intel team. And then just prior to joining Intel 471, I worked with Deutsche Bank. So I joined as a regional lead of threat intelligence in the Americas, and eventually moved on over to a global position and worked very closely with our various groups across the globe within Deutsche Bank, specifically on the threat intelligence side, but naturally we worked closely with incident response and SOC, a handful of others. Yeah. So in school, I got a bachelor's degree in industrial engineering, which is essentially looking at things from a process-centric view. So what are the best ways? What are the most optimal ways you can apply a process? How can you minimize the use of resources? Which actually parlayed nicely into the role that I had with the government that I joined after graduating with that undergrad, which was essentially what are some analytic techniques? What are some processes you can look at to better approach hard, complex problems? While I was with a government contracting company, I also got a master's degree in systems engineering from George Washington University. They sponsored that, which was phenomenal in terms of getting a more broad perspective of everything kind of quasi-cyber at that point, because I wasn't very focused on cyber initially for my undergrad program.
And what type of training did you get from the Department of Defense or through your other jobs? Have you done any type of certification training or like SANS or?
Exactly that. The government pursues SANS certifications pretty regularly. So both the contracting company I was with, SAIC, as well as the Department of Defense, they sponsored a handful of SANS courses. There's also Certified Ethical Hacker, CISSP, those types of certifications, kind of give a baseline knowledge, understanding of various aspects of cyber crime, cyber threats, that sort of thing. I wouldn't say that certifications are the number one aspect in terms of things that have kind of helped me grow. I would say that they kind of laid a foundation, and then it's really beyond that. It's the creative problem solving, the critical thinking that naturally folks tend to move towards as they pursue a career in cyber.
And when you went from like the government side to the private side, how was that journey?
That was interesting. It was so I had an opportunity. GE had reached out and asked if I'd be interested in working as they stood up a new center in New Orleans, specifically for GE Capital, and it was it was a challenge in terms of leaving the government because it was a great job, great opportunity, to something that was a little bit more nebulous, not knowing exactly what you were getting into. But in the end, it was phenomenal. You had a great cohort of people. General Electric is stocked full of phenomenal, very talented individuals. Beyond that, we had a mission that wasn't necessarily strictly focused on hunting, where I was on the applied intel hunting team. It was looking at various aspects of threats, cyber threat intelligence, hunting not within GE Capital, but more generally across GE. And of course, GE has various sectors to include aviation, healthcare, power and water, and of course the financial side of things. So it gave me this broad range of opportunities to dig into various threats targeting multiple sectors all simultaneously.
Nice. And when when you went then from like customer side to vendor side, how did that go?
Also an interesting change. Yeah. After Deutsche Bank, I went from GE to Deutsche Bank, and again, working on kind of the customer, working with providing intelligence to stakeholders within an organization, to kind of pivoting into a position where I would provide intelligence to multiple organizations, each with their own stakeholders. The reason I made that jump, took that opportunity, was because I felt like I had a pretty good understanding of threat intelligence for the financial side of the house.
Yeah.
But I wanted to know how other organizations also applied threat intelligence, other industries, again, such as aviation or oil and gas, energy sector. Were there similarities? Were there differences between those different approaches based on industry? Intel 471 provisioned that ability as a collection manager, where I had a number of different customers that I was able to interface with on almost a daily basis and try and understand what are their priorities, how are they approaching cyber threat intelligence.
Interesting. So when you do that job, do you see yourself doing it at the strategic level, operational level, technical level, all of them?
Really, it depends on the stakeholder or the customer.
Yeah.
So yes, I would say absolutely all of them. Some customers are very tactically focused.
Yeah.
So they're very focused on maybe specific IOCs or specific threat actors, TTPs of threat actors. Whereas some organizations kind of want to take that step back and understand the landscape and kind of get a footing in terms of understanding where there may be threats that are affecting their organization or maybe just their region.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of kind of having those conversations with stakeholders and understanding where they are at organizationally, and then supplying intelligence that matches those requirements.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And we just finished a workshop talking about these things. So it's really top of mind as well. So probably that's why I'm asking about these things anyway. So how many people are there at Intel 471?
About 200, give or take.
And how many thousands were there at the biggest you worked at?
Oh, geez. Well, I mean,
like tens of thousands, I guess.
Department of Defense.
Yeah.
I mean,
of course. Yeah.
Can't quite, but yes, thousands within GE, multiple hundreds within GE Capital, and just within the security teams, right? Within GE, as far as the applied intelligence team, we had about 5 individuals just focused on threats to GE Capital with a couple of hunt team members.
I'm going to jump into now to the intelligence specific part of our conversation. So, I mean, do you read or do you use other organizations that have generated intelligence? Do you use that as well, or do you only generate your own?
We primarily generate our own, but we are aware of other intelligence, and we consume other intelligence, typically open source intelligence that's out there. We want to ensure that what we're focused on not only meets stakeholders' needs, but we're also aware of other aspects of where stakeholders may be interested in. So we kind of have that ongoing feed or understanding of other threat feeds that are out there. We also, as an organization, can be targeted by threat actors. And so we want to ensure that we're aware other elements within the organization, whether it's our sales team, our marketing team, whomever, are aware of the intelligence that we're providing so they can be best positioned to counter threats as well.
Because you're a vendor, you, as I asked before, you're probably servicing all the levels. But what are typical intelligence deliveries that you consume? Yeah, like as you said, you use open source. That's one.
Yeah.
OSINT. Are there other types of intelligence? I mean, collaboration with government entities, perhaps, or with other vendors, or even intelligence from your customers. I mean, there's a wide range of opportunities, I would assume.
Yeah, I would say that, we have a working relationship with many ISACs, and it gives us an opportunity to kind of see what other intelligence is out there consumed. I mean, we provide heavily into the ISACs, but also we receive additional information. And then, of course, naturally, when we have conversations with customers, we get bits and pieces in terms of when we're trying to understand their needs, their requirements. We also understand what they're collecting and what kind of information is ultimately important to them. So that certainly helps us kind of orient where we should be positioned appropriately as well.
So I guess you probably have like a war story where you were like, yes, you nailed it. Do you have like a story like that you can share, or is it?
Well, I would say an interesting story, not necessarily bespoke to a specific tactical event, but as an organization within Deutsche Bank, we have a number of stakeholders, a number of different individuals that are consuming our intelligence. And we talked about this today during the workshop. How do you prioritize those, and how do you kind of understand what those requirements are? We had one CISO that was very, very adamant in terms of identifying or asking the intelligence department on a daily basis, what are we doing about this newest threat? He would come across a feed and he would ask at 8 o'clock Frankfurt time, what are we doing about this particular thing? So that was a big lesson learned for us in terms of understanding where our consumers are getting their initial intelligence from and how can we get ahead of that. So one of the big aha moments we had is we leveraged our Asia Pacific team, which was slightly ahead of our European team, to be able to kind of scrape those same sources of information and kind of get ahead of that loop in terms of these news topics, these things have come out, and this is what we're doing about it organizationally, and kind of moving ahead in terms of proactively addressing those particular needs.
Nice.
So that was a big kind of career lesson learned in terms of even though you may ask for intelligence requirements, you may not necessarily be addressing those very tactical things almost on a daily basis, and trying to understand where they might be emanating from is a big thing for us.
Yeah. And there's a ton of sources to choose from as well, right?
Oh
So
my gosh.
prioritizing the sources that actually service or help us do the right work with the right tools, we can actually answer the right questions to the right stakeholder. So we talked about IRM, Intelligence Requirement Management. What is that to you?
Oh boy. So it's working with stakeholders, understanding what their requirements are, and ultimately looking for ways to address those intelligence requirements, provide that intelligence at the proper time.
In your experience, do you think, or this is probably going to be difficult to answer, but do you think that this is something that the cybersecurity community and CTI people, cyber threat intel people, are good at or do? Or, I mean, it seems like you as a vendor, you're pushing it. And how is that being received by customers?
Well, yeah. Again, during the workshop, we talked a little bit about how organizations, when they first start out a new CTI program, or they just kick off a new program, they're excited. I mean, it's natural to be excited about, I'm going to produce reports for whomever. But the key is understanding who that whomever is, and then understanding what kind of reports. And so really what happens is you start collecting information and you start processing the information, you send it to whomever, and then after 6-8 months, you're not really getting the feedback that you're looking for.
Yeah. So
I think organizations, when they're brand new in terms of maturity level of CTI, they make that common mistake. It's a matter of kind of taking that step back, right? And really going through the hard process of understanding who's going to be using my intelligence, how are they going to use it, what decisions are they going to make from it.
Yeah, and that's probably, in my mind at least, that's what drives value, right? So when you go back to the stakeholder and say, in the last 6 months, we delivered these products that we agreed on, first of all, and you said we use this for these decisions. How did that go?
Yeah.
How did our intelligence actually support your decisions? What is the value we provided? It didn't. Or I mean, how can we adjust this? Oh, it did. Cool. How? Right. So it's all about figuring out those things so you can actually do, deliver value basically.
That's the key, I think, to the entire thing is really establishing that relationship with the stakeholders and understanding how it's going to be used. Because again, we've seen it in the past where customers of ours haven't really developed that relationship with their stakeholders, and the stakeholders are asking the question, we're paying for this vendor. What are they providing us? How is that ultimately supporting us organizationally?
And you have to be able to defend that, right? We're spending X amount of dollars or euros in our case, and we have to be able to defend, why are we wasting or spending money on this vendor rather than that? How is that even, what are the benefits? What are the drawbacks? What are the costs? How can we save money, basically?
Precisely.
So we have to be able to answer that and actually have a good answer. I also wanted to ask about source evaluation, information evaluation. We call it Admiralty Scale. I actually wrote a blog post on SANS about this and how we can apply it into our work. And actually, we're going to present that at the FIRST conference in a couple of days.
I saw that.
So I'm looking forward to, but I want to hear what you guys think, or you think about like source assessment and also information assessment, and how are you using that?
Yeah, great question. That's something that we took very seriously early on. In fact, all of our reporting in the form of our information reports that we push out from Intel 471 has an Admiralty code associated with it. It's how reliable, how credible is the information that we're ultimately collecting, whether it's through sources or through other means. So it gives the consumer, the stakeholder, whoever's receiving that report, a good understanding in terms of, is this something that's kind of loosely evaluated, or is this something that is confirmed by multiple sources? Because it gives you an understanding of threat actors, their motivation, and a better understanding of the landscape in general.
Yeah, it does. It does. And I mean, you're preaching to the choir here. I mean, I think that's important to do. But that brings me into another thing, right, about intelligence standards. And I mean, in the intelligence community in the US, you have IDC, where that's all about analysis, and that's where you have all the intelligence standard, analytical standards. I mean, do you guys, do you even have like a standard? Are you following the 203, or are you just doing whatever?
Well, we have specific terminology in terms of how we approach our writing in terms of estimative language. And so we do take great pride in terms of ensuring that the information that we provide and we contextualize and we report uses the proper language. We like to call ourselves the source of reason and truth organizationally. We don't like to hype certain things that don't need to be hyped, but we don't like to bury things that need to be identified appropriately. And that's ultimately a big portion of the analytic, or both the analytic and the intelligent functions, the researcher functions within Intel 471, is we have constant reviews of our reporting across the teams to ensure that we're saying what we ultimately intend to be said across those.
Yeah. And it's sort of given, I guess. We haven't talked about it, but you're following like an Intel process. You understand your stakeholders before you do the collection. And once you have collection, you figure out, or not figure out, you do the analysis and then dissemination. So it sounds like to me, at least, that you're following an Intel cycle. Absolutely.
Yeah. That's absolutely what we're founded on is the intelligence cycle. Is we talk with stakeholders and we prioritize those. Today, we talked a little bit during the workshop in terms of these reviews on a weekly basis. On Tuesdays, we come together as an intelligence department. And we look through our top prioritized intelligence requirements, and we're looking for gaps. We're trying to identify, based on last week's reporting, have we missed anything that customers have ultimately needed or required from us? And if so, how do we address that for the next week? How do we apply additional techniques in order to capture the information that customers are needing?
Yeah. And you mentioned something about the hyping and stuff. And one of the things that we also touched a little bit upon today was the whole Oracle, CloudSec, Rose character claiming that there was a breach, and Oracle denying, and then CloudSec coming on board and just writing a blog and having basically said, "Trust us."
Yeah.
And the rest of the community said, "No, we need more evidence. What you got? No, trust us. We can't tell you."
Yeah.
All of these things creates noise rather than actually reducing friction.
Yeah.
One of the key tenets of intelligence is to actually reduce uncertainty.
Yes.
But somehow we got in a situation where uncertainty just grew because other people joined in the conversation and provided evidence in air quotes, but didn't really provide the evidence behind it.
Yes.
And I think that's a key important part where another thing we talked about today is always reference. Use estimated language where you need to, and then where something is fact, you have to separate the two, and also use referencing, so we're really clear on what we base this on. And the third, what we just talked about, the admiralty scale, assessing the source and information as well, so we don't throw in stuff that's just hearsay rather than facts, etc. So
absolutely. I mentioned it also early on in terms of the critical thinking aspect, and I think that's a key component of it as well. And I know that organizations were applying critical thinking, but I think it's of utmost importance when there's an event like this is to kind of ask those layers deeper and deeper and try to understand the so what or other aspects associated with it. Have that inquisitive mind is very critical.
Yeah. And you mentioned another thing, and you said OSINT. You were using OSINT for some of your sourcing or intelligence. You use open source intelligence. Now, I'm going to ask you, what's the difference between OSINT and OSINF? So open source intelligence and open source information in your mind. And what is mostly out there in your mind?
If I were to venture a guess in terms of intelligence, open source intelligence, that's the traditional sense in terms of information has been pulled together, contextualized, and it addresses a specific question. It addresses a need or an intelligence requirement.
Yeah.
Information, open source information can be a simple feed. It can be a feed of data, IOCs, for instance, and it's not necessarily contextualized. That's ultimately from my perspective, but I don't know if I feel completely comfortable.
I am biased on this.
Are you?
So I was sort of hoping that you would say that, well, most of the things you find online, even from vendors sometimes, not saying, you're one of those, but most of the time they claim to have intelligence while it's actually just data and information.
Yeah.
Right? It's not actual intelligence because it hasn't been processed, it hasn't used admiralty scale, right? So you ticked a lot of the boxes previously, or I mean, before we got to this question.
Yeah.
So it seems to me at least, what you're generating is actually following the intelligence process. You're assessing the sources and information. Yeah. You separate between, what we know, what we don't know. We're using some sort of analytic standard, at least that we follow what we're doing inside our organization, in air quotes. So to me, it seems like you're actually delivering closer to intelligence than most other vendors. And also when you see out there, those who do OSINT, usually just peddle data and information, but they haven't done. The best example is they go on former Twitter or X and just pull out the profile, whatever they posted, created a timeline and done, right?
Yes, exactly.
And it's like, yes, but what?
So what?
So what? What does this mean? What is the context? What should we do with this? There's so much missing, but here's a beautiful mind map or a relationship graph, right? How everything's connected. Yes, but what's the bigger picture here?
Yes.
And I actually posted a question on LinkedIn where I asked people, what makes something intelligence and what doesn't end up being intelligence? How do you know the difference?
Yeah.
And people came with a lot of good ideas, but I'm still struggling to say that's intelligence, that's not intelligence.
Delineate between
those two. Where is that gray zone, that area where it's really difficult to say, right? Yeah. My intelligence is not your intelligence.
Yeah.
That basically says, although I've done everything right, you still have to go back and backtrack my intelligence and then dissect what am I basing it on? Have I followed standards? Have I done source evaluation, information evaluation, etc. All of those things I still have to do just to verify to verify my intelligence. Yeah. So there's always this process, and a lot of the time you get stuck. I get stuck at least because I have no idea how this gentleman or this organization got to this conclusion or this assessment, because the data and the background they've written does not support it, or there are no references.
Yes.
Right? To me, then that's information, right? We're missing key components of what should be intelligence.
From point A, how did you get to point C? What steps were taken in order to achieve that? And that's those steps, again, the critical thinking, the aspects kind of showing your work provides that additional detail, which ultimately converts it from intelligence or from information to intelligence.
Yeah. And do you guys do, just out of curiosity, when it comes to automation and machine learning and AI, I mean, everyone's doing AI these days.
Oh yeah,
So, we just wanted to hear a little bit about what your take is on how to do intelligence using AI and machine learning and automation.
Yeah.
How are you guys, or you, or your guys? Yeah.
I mean, this is obviously a huge topic right now, super contemporary. AI is taking over the world, right? I mean, everything is coming about regarding AI. Everything from just internal processes and capabilities from, we're a Google shop, so we leverage Gemini. There's aspects of that where we keep it internal. But we really took, I would say, a pragmatic approach to AI. We didn't join in and everything associated with AI and providing reports in terms of AI generated reports. I think we are stepping into that very deliberately in terms of what do we do organizationally? How do we do what we do right now? What's manual about this process? And where can there be opportunities for efficiencies? Is it something that could be script-based, or is there truly artificial intelligence solutions that may be able to enable us to more efficiently produce this report or conduct this type of analysis? But it's really one of those double-edged swords. It will provide a great value, but there are obviously threats and vulnerabilities associated with it as well, in terms of anything from data leakage, and that can be stymied. I mean, they can address that. But if we want to, and get into threat actors' use of AI as well, and how they're looking to target AI systems and gather information. So you need to be cognizant of all tools that you're leveraging organizationally.
Yeah.
But in short, yes, we do have aspects of artificial intelligence within our organization that helps primarily on the operational efficiencies side of things.
Yeah. And when I speak to people and vendors, everyone slaps AI on everything, right? And the media is like, oh my gosh, the threat actors are using AI. I'm like, well, we have been using AI for the last 10 years when you look at automation. Automation isn't quite AI, but machine learning certainly are.
Yes. Yep.
And machine learning we've been doing for the last 5 to 10 years anyway, in defensive measures, right? So it basically you guys, we at my organization, we are basically using AI already.
Yeah.
But everyone's focusing on the threat actor. What I'm trying to say is the threat actors do not operate in a vacuum.
Yeah.
We do what we can to utilize and exploit AI. They try to scrap the surface as well. And at some point, there's going to be this duel, right? They did something, we have to detect and define. And this is how it's been all along.
Yeah.
I mean, since
it's a cat and mouse game, right? It's going to continue to be head in that direction with every new technology that comes out. Threat actors are going to look to leverage that capability for the nefarious purposes. And then naturally, there's going to be some back and forth in terms of blue team trying to counter that type of activity. And ultimately, it's a growing challenge. It's a growing cat and mouse game.
So when we talk about at the end of everything, you have delivered the fantastic products to your clients or customers or consumers. How do you measure that success? How do you ensure that you actually delivered value to whoever your stakeholders are?
Absolutely. So we have, again, similar to the intelligence lifecycle, we have collection managers, right? These collection managers, their job is to keep a finger on the pulse of, are we addressing their needs and their stakeholders' needs? Are we ultimately providing the right level of information that's actionable that they can then make decisions they ultimately need to make decisions on? That process is, for most of our clients, it happens on a monthly basis. So they'll have a call for roughly an hour long and walk through what's being produced. And if we're missing the mark, then we address it. We look for ways we can continue to hit the specific Intel requirements. Collection managers take that information back to our weekly sync meeting and say, hey, client X has identified this gap. We need to make sure that we're addressing this a little bit more efficiently.
Nice. So, and do you ever get feedback from stakeholders saying, this sucked? I mean, this didn't work at all. And how do you solve that?
Yeah, we do. Yeah. And it's typically on the timeliness side of things. Naturally, there is a lot of information out there that we need to ultimately contextualize and produce into intelligence. And so naturally, when an event happens, it's typically more of a reactive than a proactive type of situation, but there's an Oracle breach or there's some other large type of breach. Organizations are being pursued by their management to provide answers. So they're asking for information as quickly as absolutely possible. The way we approach this is we have different lines of reporting. So rather than having a full information report that takes a lot of analysis and effort, we do these smaller bite-sized reports, sit reps, situation reports, saying that we're looking at this, we found this, and then we have a sequence of these sit reps that tends to address the need of our clients. And that was, again, taken as feedback from clients in the past where they said, hey, we need information more quickly. Can you get this out at a greater cadence?
So we're going to move into skills and knowledge about intelligence and training and all those fun things that I think is really enjoyable. And this is outside of your realm because you don't do these things. So,
yeah.
Well, partially actually. So if you were to rate yourself in knowledge in intelligence, where 1, you are a noob, you don't know anything. 5, you can teach it. I already know the answer, but a lot of it at least.
Well, there's so many aspects of intelligence.
Good answer so far.
Yeah. That I would rate myself a 3, to be honest.
Oh, that low. I was hoping 4.5 or something.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many components. The more you get into it, the more you understand it, the more you realize there's so many other pieces and parts and puzzles that you can dig into that I'm aware enough now at my age that if you would have asked me probably 10 years ago, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm like a 5. Yeah, I got it.
Is there a 5+?
Yeah, exactly. Can I go higher? No, it's yeah, I would say roughly a 3. And I do my part to try to help train other folks, other organizations in terms of what I know, but also realizing when I provide information, I'm also learning and constantly trying to learn and take in new things associated with intelligence and analytic techniques and how to produce the right intelligence organizationally.
And actually a really good answer. I was serious when I thought you were going to say 4 or 4.5 because that was what I had in mind when I started. And when I sort of took notes for myself and the things I wanted to ask about. But when you explain now, I'm like, that makes sense. Although we both today have taught a workshop and talking about IRM, intelligence requirement management is just a small part of the intelligence dialogue, which is a small part of direction, right?
Correct.
And when you zoom out, there's so much more. And when I generated the intelligence architecture mind map, that's not even covering everything, right? But it's covering enough to see how freaking big intelligence is and how complex it actually is.
Did you see everyone's eyes when you kind of zoomed out on that?
No, I was pointing to the screen, so I should have probably turned around. But every time I talk about it and show it and actually zoom out and show how complex and big it is.
Yeah.
And when I teach SATs, structure analytical techniques, that's just a small subset of analysis, processing, and analysis.
Yeah.
So there's so much more to think about in that context. And you're absolutely right. I would rate myself probably 3.5, maybe a 3.75 or something, because I have so much to learn anyway.
Yeah.
And I'm doing my part in terms of the IRM part, also collection, doing the analysis and writing, reporting, and also dissemination. Touching and getting better at how to teach and convey, how to do the measurement and feedback as well. So I'm trying to get there, but that's going to take like 10 more years to get a good grasp of all of those elements.
Yeah.
So whoever claims to be 5, I'm going to go, really?
Yeah.
Tell me more.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's flip up the mind map and point at something at, just by chance.
Yeah.
Tell me, have a 15 minutes talk about that.
Oh boy. Yeah.
That's going to be interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Is I think that's a key though within threat intelligence is never stop trying to learn, understand, and ask
Acquisitive
questions.
mind, right?
Precisely.
Yeah.
Precisely.
I think that's important. You mentioned before that you've done some training. And I want to ask specifically about some of them. Specifically at SANS, they have what's called FOR 578, the CTI course.
Yes.
And half of that course is intelligence and how to do analysis of competing hypotheses, trying to figure out what's going on together with diamond model and with we have a cyber kill chain.
Yeah.
And the other part is more technical and how you're going to do this with more on collection side.
Yep.
Have you done that course at all, or any type of course that are similar to this?
Yeah, I haven't officially taken course. However, I have seen some content for that particular course as well from Intel 471, some aspects of that. So I was given the privilege of seeing aspects and pieces of 578. Absolutely. I mean, great information in there. The SANS courses are phenomenal in the sense of they cover a lot of information, broad ranges of information, but then have the ability to deep dive into specific aspects of those various courses.
When at least I've done the CTI course and also done I think it's called 589. It's the cybercrime intelligence course, where the admiralty scale and how you assess profiles online and dig into criminal networks type of thing, which was really good as well.
Yeah.
And one key thing with both of those two courses is that you have CTI people who have no background in intelligence, but they get introduced to intelligence. And I'm biased here, right? So my question to you is, do you think that more CTI people should be interested in and or take intelligence type of training, where you have critical thinking, where you have identifying biases, where you may be using SATs type of thing?
Well, I'm actually gonna push and say yes and no, because I know there are individuals that take every single SANS course just to collect the certifications associated with those. The value, the return on investment on that can be questionable in terms of taking every one of those. SANS may counter and say, oh, absolutely, there's value in every one of those. However, what I would say is identify something you're truly passionate about, dig into it, understand why you want to get into that, and then dive into that and apply yourself and fully immerse yourself, become an expert in that. And then if you want to pivot from there and get into the next level, and again, continuing to pursue excellence in knowledge is absolutely critical. But don't take every SANS course back to back to back to back, because then you're going to get a broad understanding of a lot of things as opposed to truly actionable understanding of one or two specific things.
And not all of those are intelligence specific either. Some of them have an intelligence part, but most of them are technical.
Yes.
At least in my experience. And part of my research, the second part of the research I'm going to do is actually figure out what is the type of training available, what type of training are cyber people doing, and why are they doing this rather than something else, whatever that else is. And then figuring out how can we make a better balance of not too technical. Well, I think I agree with you that when you have figured out your calling, your sort of niche, you should dive in and be better at it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, how are you going to deliver value to whoever you're giving this to? And that's where I think the intelligence part comes in.
Yes.
But that's my bias. I am biased on this. I think that. But that my research will try to disprove my hypothesis. Right? So I'm going to try and figure out all the different alternatives and then figure out, well, what is the common denominator? What are the differences? What are the similarities? And figuring out how this works.
I'd be interested in seeing that research.
Me too.
Yeah, that sounds exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to doing it as well because it's going to be challenging, but also rewarding. From my perspective, I think intelligence is something more of us should take into our day-to-day job. but that's my perspective, and I do intelligence. I don't do technical analysis, right?
Yeah.
So I don't have their perspective. But I meet the stakeholders are higher up in the organization. They don't care about how good you were at doing this malware analysis.
Yeah.
They don't care about how good you were and what courses you did in reverse malware engineering. They care about the so what.
Yes.
And 10 out of 10 of CTI people can't communicate the so what.
The so what. Yeah.
Right. So that's what I'm thinking. There's a gap here we need to fill. And also we need to be more relevant and valuable to other stakeholders than our peers.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, someone's paying the bill. And if they're not happy with what you do or don't see the value because nothing happened, so why are we paying all this money for all these people because
Exactly.
nothing happened?
There's no incidents,
We
no
have
challenges.
to be able to communicate clearly the value we have. And
Yes.
that's sort of one of my pet peeves and probably one of the big reasons I wanted to do the PhD. But anyway, we digress.
I'm right there on the same page. That's phenomenal.
When people have done training and you're a trainer, right? So that usually this is when you're done training, when you come back, how are you trying to apply it?
Yeah.
That type of question and what worked and what didn't work and stuff. But
I get bits and pieces of that. I'm sure you do too. I mean, following these workshops, near the end, we encourage people to provide feedback in terms of what worked well during the workshop, in terms of how it was implemented within your organization, or even real time during the workshop.
Yeah.
But I love getting feedback or notes or emails, messages on LinkedIn in terms of, hey, I applied this technology or this capability, and it worked, or this didn't work, this failed, and we take that feedback seriously in terms of trying to make these training sessions better.
Yeah. So what would you say make an intelligence analyst great?
Yeah. So I kind of hinted at this before. The critical thinking part is probably the biggest one that comes to mind. I think it's ultimately that inquisitive mindset, asking the so what to yourself and trying to get to the underlying information so that you can address what ultimately your stakeholder or whoever you're providing intelligence to wants to know. You also mentioned previously curiosity, or like having a sense of curiosity in terms of what's this all about, and kind of digging into that. I would absolutely agree with that as well. Those would be the biggest characteristics.
Same, man. Preaching to the choir.
Yeah.
In terms of SATs, so structured analytical techniques, do you have any experience with it? I mean, from previous work or training or?
When you conduct intelligence, you have to have a systematic approach to that. We talk about the intelligence life cycle, right? You have to understand what the stakeholders need before you can get to collecting information, before you analyze it. Each one of these is a very systematic approach so that you can kind of show your work. You can show that analytic process, the overall process. Structured analytic techniques is a piece of that overall process, right? So you want to be able to illustrate how you got to the point that you got to. So absolutely, it's critical.
So the next would be, how do you think either CTI teams or intelligence teams, how do you think they should demonstrate value to their stakeholders? So one part is you doing it to your paying customers, but how are they supposed to, what do you think they should do to demonstrate value to their stakeholders?
Yeah, that's really the beauty of this. The workshop really is try to provide our customers a means to convey the value to their organization, to their stakeholders. I mean, at the end of the day, their stakeholders are paying their salary in addition to paying for the vendor services that we provide. But it's also, I mean, the CTI program doesn't exist without the stakeholders that are providing intelligence requirements and also providing feedback. So really what it amounts to is, and we say this pretty regularly throughout the workshop, is really you have to build that relationship with your stakeholder. Once you fully understand what the stakeholder is interested in, then you can provide intelligence. Then you can get open, honest feedback so that you can modify and enhance and pivot on that intelligence in future iterations. It's a back and forth continuously.
I'm going to ask like a silly question. Intelligence driven or incident driven? What do you choose?
Obviously intelligence driven, right? It just screams proactiveness. If you're on the front end of things, if you're collecting information, then you're constantly hopefully ahead of the curve in terms of providing intelligence so you can orient around incidents. However, that won't preclude you from having an incident organizationally.
Yeah.
There's always going to be something, and it's critical to know from an intelligence provider perspective that there's constantly going to be something that is incident driven, and that's where you have an agreement with your stakeholder that they can ask requests for information, or they can ask for incident related situations specific to intelligence.
Yeah.
So, although I would prefer intelligence driven, several times we'll see incidents that are incident driven types of situations as well.
And those will happen, right? But that's not 98% of the day. That's my point, right?
Yes.
So a lot of the organizations I work with or come in and teach for, they try to boil the ocean because, they have to have something happening. Otherwise we're not working.
Yes.
But that's where you should do the proactive part and try to figure out what happens in the next 2 weeks, 2 months, or 2 years, so you can be prepared for it and actually demonstrate the different value.
Exactly.
So those are always interesting discussions to have. We already covered a little bit about AI, but in terms of AI, machine learning, or large language models, which is the big buzz these days, or LLMs, if you will, do you think that they will change, or that will change the way we do intelligence going forward? And if so, how?
I think, yes, absolutely. I mean, I think if you're not in tune to AI and things that are happening AI or tangentially AI related, you're going to be left behind. It's a buzzword, and there's also implementation. There's effects associated with it right now. How it will affect intelligence, there's going to still be aspects of human interpretation that's going to be necessary. So we were talking a little bit about operational efficiencies. How can we, Intel 471, leverage AI to speed up the process of delivering intelligence? And this is, again, something that clients had asked about. How can we more quickly, more efficiently get intelligence into the hands of our decision makers? So naturally, AI would come into play associated with this. However, you can't rely exclusively on provisioning AI as an end result. We still feel the need right now to have our researchers, our human individuals that have essentially collected this information, review what's been contextualized by the AI model. We want to make sure what we're providing doesn't run that trip line in terms of being too hyped. We still want to ensure that we're the voice of reason and truth, providing the right level of information to our stakeholders. Yeah.
And we talked a little bit about this before in terms of machine learning, already been doing it for quite some time. And where if you have a data set and automate, let's say, collection, automate processing, normalizing data before you start putting it into data sets and then start using it for analysis, I think we can do a lot with AI right now.
A lot of those.
And we can do more going forward. In terms of using LLMs to support us, I'm a little bit still on the fence, simply because at one part of the discussion, we have to be clear on what an LLM is and what it isn't. It generates text. It's not knowledgeable. So you can give it data, but it will still invent words. If you try to ask it, oh, how did you get to that answer? That's a new question, and it will start generating new text, not based on what it gave you, right? And people misunderstand this all the time. So, the LLM told me that that's what it did. It generated words. That's what it's supposed to do. That's the feature. When it lies, in quotation marks, it doesn't lie, it just invents words. Statistically, that's the right word it was supposed to choose. So that, and we're not getting closer. I saw yesterday, a report from OpenAI that even the newest models they just came out with are hallucinating more rather than less. And some commenters were saying they don't know how this happens. They're trying to figure it out, which to me is like, yes, that makes sense, right? But all the AI elite, all the ones that are praising AI, they ignore the negatives and only talk about all the fantastic things they can do.
Because those issues, eventually will get suppressed and removed, they feel, but it needs to be addressed, right? It needs to be brought to light, brought to surface, and understood where are the pros, where are the cons, and cautiously step into it and not fully immerse yourself, which is.
And this is the critical thinking part, right? Yes, I want to use AI, but not blindly. I want to understand how an LLM or automation or machine learning can help me or even take over certain things.
Yes.
But I have to be sure that it does it correct every time. It's repeatable.
Yes.
Rather than, this one was good. The next 10 is bad. And then the next 20 is good. And I don't know which is which.
Yes.
That's a huge problem, right? So being critical, being able to analyze the source. How did you get this? Where did it come from? What is the source assessment and information evaluation, right? Those things I need to be able to say, I agree with assessment. I can let this machine go and actually let it do it, because over time, I've seen that based on these sources, this data, and that question, it gives a repeat, not the same answer, but the same trust level, right?
Yes. Yeah, you're right on as far as kind of our internal discussions along those same lines in terms of developing these reports, right? We need to test the waters. However, we need to have those training wheels on to ensure that we can eventually provide that level of trust. So, singing to the choir.
I want to jump out of AI and go back to what you said initially and your transition first from government to private sector. If other people and this day and age want to move from government into private sector, how would you suggest they would do that? And not suggest in detail, but overall, how would you advise them if someone came to you and asked for advice?
Now, are they already
they're in government and trying to
intelligence
transition
type of or cyber type of aspect? But
from intelligence,
moving on over to private industry. I think private industry is pretty regularly looking for candidates that have that solid government background. However, there may be instances in which you need to demonstrate knowledge or maybe provide additional capability or show that you have additional capabilities through maybe certifications. But really what it comes down to, I would say 90% of the time is you'll get an interview, right? You'll have a conversation with a hiring manager. But I would recommend having that inquisitive mindset, having that critical thinking, having the ability to be able to talk openly about certain things and being able to demonstrate knowledge in certain areas and know where you may not necessarily have the knowledge and be able to humbly admit, like, it's not really my forte, but it's something that I can certainly dive into. Those are the types of approaches that I would take if you're looking at transitioning into private sector.
Agreed. And when I look back at my life and my transition from government into private sector and all the years since, there are certain, I can identify certain key points, decisions made in my life, and who were instrumental helping me. Do you have examples of someone who did something, taught you something, told you something when you went, and then you got going? I mean, that sort of a release the plug type of thing.
I mean, within the government, and even when I was in government contracting, we had a very good mentoring program that both official in terms of an actual mentor, an intern/mentor type of situation, but then also just management that was very just invested in terms of career progression and approaching problems with kind of a critical mindset and kind of always pushing and countering and providing that back and forth, not just rubber stamping, saying, yeah, good job, that sort of thing. You don't get that all the time, but it's always nice when you have an individual, a champion within your organization. I've been fortunate in the past to have champions throughout my career, and I try to do the same thing for others now that I'm a little bit more seasoned and that sort of thing, and provide that unbiased feedback and really press people in certain areas in terms of where there's they could grow and continue to mature individually.
So, Garrett, thank you so much for coming and talking honestly and candidly about your experience, how you came from government into private sector, now into the vendor space, what we did today with teaching and all your thoughts and experiences on intelligence requirements, which was the workshop we did today. It was amazing teaching with you and your colleague today. So that was amazing.
It was an absolute pleasure. Yeah, it was phenomenal teaching with you. I thought it was great, the tag teaming back and forth. And again, I really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you here with your podcast. It's phenomenal.